A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a collection of LEGO-fied Star Wars games were released, leading to a phenomenon of humorous and charming parodies of a pop culture spectacle. They were funny as much as they were heartfelt representations of all the things we loved about Star Wars, and this new collection, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, continues that trend with all new gameplay refinements and content that makes this the most action-packed toy box yet. With a complete revamp of the movies already LEGO-fied and the addition of the final trilogy, the Skywalker Saga is filled to the brim with content and midichlorians alike. Star Wars The Skywalker Saga follows the story of the entire mainline Star Wars franchise. Up until now, you could only play a version of Star Wars Episodes 1 through 7, but it's not until this new iteration that you can finally play the version including The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. There's some additional pre-order bonus content that lets you download skins referencing other side stories like Solo: A Star Wars Story and The Mandalorian, but outside of that, their campaigns aren't part of this story. Overviewing the whole Star Wars franchise, I've enjoyed the original trilogy, the prequels have admittedly started to grow on me a little bit over the years, and the new trilogy, well, it exists. My takes on what the films did aside, I think the Skywalker Saga did a faithful job at recreating them in their classic humor form, with plenty of cheesy, self-aware jokes along the way. You might have played a LEGO Star Wars game before, but the transition to the Skywalker Saga introduces plenty of changes aside from the new story content. Gone is the wide camera view replaced with a tighter camera for a completely revamped combat system. In prior LEGO games you had your droid, lightsaber wielders, and characters with range weaponry. Pressing attack button would either spam your lightsaber swings or fire a blaster toward an enemy. While that system is still somewhat here, it works differently now with an over-the-shoulder camera view. When playing as a ranged shooter character, you can aim over the shoulder and even duck behind cover for a more Gears of War cover shooter-like setup. You can take out barricades and even build them in the middle of a fight, although the combination of the stormtrooper's terrible aim and the game's generous health regeneration means that the combat rarely felt all that challenging. Lightsaber duels have a lot more variety in the sense that it's not just senseless swinging. You have a lot more control over moves like being able to throw your lightsaber, force lift objects, and precisely aim them at enemies, and there's even a melee combo system. It's not all that robust in practice. In fact, a lot of the mechanics feel like minor modifications over time as far as the previous LEGO games go. Even then, it's the visual representation that feels so new, and it's a refreshing sight to behold. Across the 45 main story missions taking you to various planets across the galaxy and the 9 films, the campaign is filled with missions to play through, side stories to complete, and unlockables that keep you playing well after the credits roll. Each of the story missions does a solid job of recreating these films' narratives through these large sandbox recreations of famous planets, from the likes of Naboo to Tatooine. There's some well-appreciated variety in the missions too, including X-Wing missions and pod racing. In these sandboxes you'll find a handful of optional missions that tend to focus on the sandbox itself, looking for more studs or kyber bricks. Studs and kyber bricks make up this collection's new RPG mechanics. While in previous games studs tended to go toward unlockable cosmetics, in this one they can also go towards upgrading specific character class skill sets or general upgrades for every character. For example, you can improve the speed of building objects to the size of the magnetic field that attracts studs towards you. It's a rather shallow RPG system on the surface, but a welcome addition to the series that can go a long way towards anyone looking for their next completion fix. Now, the entirety of this game can be played with local co-op like in prior games, although now with the split screen view thanks to the new camera perspective. It works sometimes, although because of the closer camera angle, it can get a bit challenging to aim or just see where you're going. It becomes most intrusive when you're in the middle of a climactic part of a film or a boss battle, and then suddenly one of you is just a blaster character while the other one is a Jedi fighting a Sith. It just feels a bit imbalanced. Over the years, games based on toys have gotten astonishingly more realistic, with the likes of Hot Wheels Unleashed being the best example in recent memory. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga takes notes from that, with improved reflections, shadows, and textures well beyond that found in prior LEGO Star Wars games. In conjunction with the more cinematic camera angle, LEGO Star Wars has never looked this good. Especially when wandering through the sandbox planets, these worlds feel like a children's toy box come to life, and it's breathtaking. In regards to performance, I was able to play on an Xbox Series X and a Nintendo Switch for this review. Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 both have the option to prefer resolution or frame rate over the other, with the latter targeting 60 frames per second over 30. Both of the display modes worked and looked well, though for the purposes of smoother controls and aiming, I tend to recommend going with the 60 frames per second more than the resolution. Nintendo Switch being the weaker of the available platforms saw a bit more of a struggle when trying to run these games. The Switch has a 30 FPS target but frequently dips about a frame to 4 frames, most noticeable during heavy firefights or in the later films. In dock mode, the resolution tends to stay around 720p, but in portable mode, things can get a bit fuzzy and the mediocre anti-aliasing doesn't really help that much. Encompassing the various themes, motives, and just classic music of the Star Wars franchise, it's hard to knock a game that is a licensed wonderland of great tracks. The creative teams use the library of music wonderfully, helping to capture the most memorable moments of the franchise, while still incorporating a couple of jokes here and there. What did surprise me a bit, since it's been a while since I played a LEGO Star Wars game, was the full voice acting going on during cutscenes. Not all of the original voice actors are here, but even when played by other actors, the line delivery is pretty good, and close to those of the original films. Having been so used to the whole LEGO mumble voice acting, I didn't really expect to like it as much as I did, but I'm happy to be wrong here. And for those that still prefer the original charm of the mumbles, you have the option to turn it back on in the audio settings. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is a formidable collection of nostalgia, fun, and entertainment that's a true love letter to both those that grew up watching Star Wars and those that grew up playing the LEGO games back during the GameCube generation. It stumbles at times with its co-op mode and doesn't completely feel fleshed out with its new RPG mechanics, but it did succeed in keeping me enthralled along the way. Through its various goofs at this space opera, it kept me smiling in ways that a lot of these films couldn't, making revisiting even the bad movies a bit fun.